Chapter 3. An Ill-Fated Vessel. Some years after we last saw him, the old man in the herringbone coat sat on the bucking bench seat of a 1903 Knox, a turn-of-the-century flatbed truck normally used for delivering produce. Alongside him sat the driver in a pageboy cap and goggles. The driver's scarf kept brushing the old man's face. This happened with almost enough frequency to change his mood from one of excitement to one of annoyance. The Knox was first in a line of trucks. There were 8 trucks in all, and their flat, open beds were piled high with wooden crates. Jutting from the top of these were copper pipes and massive, straw-packed glass orbs. The trucks wound their way around the streets of London towards the shipyards. They arrived at a newly constructed wall and gate, large enough to completely hide the dock from the view from anyone walking on the street. Standing by the gate were 4 sailors of unequal size, poorly shaven, tanned to the color of old leather, and uncomfortable in their ill-fitting uniforms. Noticing the man in the herringbone coat, the largest of them spoke.
Oi! Piss off, ye! You got the wrong address. You can't bring your groceries down here.
I am Dr. Calgore. I believe your captain is waiting for me,
said the old man sitting up in his seat.
Oi, we do know you. We know him,
said the smallest of the sailor, while elbowing the largest.
Let me fetch the captain. We'll see what he wants to do with you.
With that, he slipped through the gate. The largest of the sailors then stepped around towards the side of the first truck and tipped one of the crates precariously over so we could see inside it.
Is this where you keep your magical contraptions, Doc? How's about a little magic while we wait?
Dr. Calgore scrambled clumsily out of the truck.
Careful with that, my good man. It is not magic. Those orbs are both delicate and expensive. I have no idea where I could acquire another on such short notice. I had them especially made to my exact specifications, and lacking even one would unbalance the...
At this point, an orb rolled out of the box and popped like a giant light bulb at the feet of the sailor. As it burst, the pink gas that was inside it formed a small cloud just 2 feet off the ground surrounding the sailor's waist. The cloud began to rain, and a teeny bolt of lightning cracked like a whip and struck the sailor in the knee. In his fright, he leapt backward into the chest of an enraged captain who had walked quietly up during the commotion and watched the whole scene unfold without uttering a word.
Buffoon,
the captain exclaimed with a look of disgust on his face. He swung his cane and struck the sailor in his left eye. The brass T-shaped cane handle sunk deeply into the sailor's eye socket. The captain then removed it with both difficulty and disgust.
You cretin,
he continued to roar at the stricken sailor who fell to his knees in pain, grasping at his face.
I don't know whether to call you a liability or a punchinello. This equipment is worth more than your life.
He raised his cane again to strike.
Good sir, that is more than excessive,
cried Dr. Calgore. The captain lowered his cane and glared angrily back at Calgore. He glared for just a second, but then his demeanor flickered to one of cordial politeness.
Ah, Dr. Calgore. I was told you had arrived. I'm Captain Brussel. I hope you didn't find your journey too taxing.
Not at all,
Calgore answered, not masking his distaste. With a concerned look, he walked over to check on the sailor on the ground.
Pay no attention to this mongrel. He's made of stern stuff. I'm sure he's learned his lesson and will be back to his post in no time. Isn't that right, mongrel?
Though he was shaking, the sailor on the ground did not utter a reply. The captain continued.
Now let me show you what we have prepared for you.
I will admit I am curious as to why we are at the docks,
Dr. Calgore said shakily, as the captain led him away from the wounded sailor. This cruel violence wasn't the first the doctor had seen in his life, but it was jarring nonetheless. Through the gates was a beehive of commotion as dozens of men labored around a massive sailing ship. The ship's design was easily 100 years out of date. It was vintage, even for the 1900s. Yet its construction looked new, even unfinished in places. The ship looked like a gorgeous and ornate vessel from the height of the age of sail. Intricately carved wood, cannon, rope, masts, sails, and figurehead. It was majestic and beautiful, and completely new. It was a strong contrast to the beaten and scarred sailors that were busy loading or rigging her. They filled the air with the smell of their sweat and startling profanity.
Why have you brought me to this pirate ship?
The doctor asked, in distaste for the sailors and vessel. Calgore had been through a lot, and at this age, his memory was very selective, as you will see.
This is the vessel you ought to fit with your contraptions.
The captain said. Calgori's eyes narrowed as he squinted at the boat, but the captain continued.
I realize she looks old-fashioned, but I assure you she's very new and beautifully built. A great deal of consideration was put into her construction, and her old-fashioned looks were very much a part of the grand plan. Though she looks heavy and old-fashioned, she is light and as modern as 1906 can produce. This is the HMS Ophelia, a Shakespearean reference, you see, and a bloody good joke, as Ophelia floated herself, didn't she?
The captain ended with a perverse chuckle. The doctor glared at the grinning captain.
Hamlet's Ophelia died in the water, as will you and your crew. Do you have any idea what the hull will go through when we attempt to travel if it's submerged at water?
I'm sure you have your work cut out for you, and I would hope you are capable of making the necessary modifications.
This question was almost a dare, and Calgary wondered if he saw a threat behind the captain's bushy eyebrows.
Quite,
said Calgary, and he paused while he made some calculations in his head.
However, your men up on those masts are wasting their time. Bring them down and fetch me some porters. This will completely change the schedule I had originally proposed. We will need to unpack, and I think we will need to order more canvas.
We have 2 complete sets of sails, Doctor.
It's not for the sails. I shall make you a list of new supplies. Your superiors really should have spoken to me before they commissioned the ship's construction. They completely misunderstood my quite specific directions. I'm sure it fits your plans, but it is completely unsuitable for mine. Unless you are planning to die on your first trip, we have a lot of modifications to make, not the least being that we need to get this boat out of the water.
As the doctor was escorted aboard, the sailors from the gate shouldered their wounded friend up the gangplank and tried to hush his mumbled threats.
Under that talk now, mongrel. You've got no option but to serve your captain to go back to prison. I will say. Will bloody well say.